Hello and welcome to Focus on Africa. I'm Zuhura Yunus. Our top stories. Kenya escalates its maritime dispute with neighboring Somalia, saying it will not recognize next week's International Court of Justice ruling on the case. We return to the scene of the riots in South Africa as 3 months on, people are still counting the human and financial cost of the violence and looking for answers.
I need to know what happened to my son. All I want is to bury him. I need closure.
Donated, then dumped. How the West's obsession with unusable low-quality fast fashion is causing an environmental nightmare for Ghana. Also in the program, the African women who have dominated in a man's world. We'll hear from the illustrator who's using art to tell the story of the roles that African queens have played in the continent's rich history.
She actually was a really strong military ruler. She knew what she wanted, but unfortunately, because of being a woman, she couldn't show herself as a strong pharaoh that she was.
We'll show you the new tech on display at the Dubai World Fair, which could deliver a solution to water insecurity by conjuring it out of thin air. And in sport, there are more 2022 Qatar World Cup qualifying matches taking place across Africa. Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. We start in Kenya, where the government has said it will not recognize next week's expected ruling by the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, on the maritime border dispute with Somalia. In a statement, Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry said the judgment will be the culmination of a flawed judicial process that was biased. The ICJ is set to deliver its judgment on the sea dispute off the coast of Kenya and Somalia next Tuesday. The two countries are both claiming a 160,000 square kilometer triangle in the Indian Ocean, thought to be rich in oil and gas. Ahead of the judgment, the BBC's Ferdinando Mondi explains the diplomatic and security implications of the dispute.
The waters look calm, but a stormy dispute between Kenya and Somalia has been running for 4 decades. This is how Kenya's border currently runs into the Indian Ocean and how it wants it to stay. Kenya first established this maritime boundary by presidential proclamation in 1979. And this is how Somalia thinks that border should be. In 2009, the two countries signed a memorandum of understanding certified by the United Nations to negotiate their boundaries. In 2014, Somalia decided to settle the matter at the International Court of Justice at The Hague. In its application, Somalia said diplomatic negotiations have failed, and it was now asking the court to determine the precise geographical coordinates of the single maritime boundary in the Indian Ocean. But that is not all. Somalia also wants the ICJ to declare that Kenya has violated its international obligations to respect the sovereignty and sovereign rights and jurisdiction of Somalia and is responsible under international law to make full reparation to Somalia. A year later, Kenya filed an objection to the court case, arguing that the Memorandum of Understanding was binding. Kenya would also question the jurisdiction and fairness of the courts and seek postponements because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The court eventually rejected those arguments and ordered a hearing this year. Earlier this year, Kenya decided to pull out of the case, citing procedural unfairness and questioning whether justice would be done. Nevertheless, the judgment is set to go ahead.
I don't think Kenya will accept to cede that territory if ICJ rules for Somalia, because all along Kenya has been having that territory. Number two, the court did not give Kenya that territory.
Today, Kenya gave its strongest indication yet that it has no intentions to respect an unfavorable judgment. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs claimed the delivery of the judgment will be the culmination of a flawed judicial process that Kenya has had reservations with and withdrawn from on account not just of its obvious and inherent bias, but also of its unsuitability to resolve the dispute at hand. Somalia is hoping for a judgment in its favor, but Fawzia Yusuf, who was foreign minister when the case was filed, says the door would still be open for negotiations.
Almost 1/3 of Kenya is Somali-speaking territory. Somalia's investment are mainly in Kenya, Nairobi, Mombasa, everywhere. It's a country, these two countries need each other. There's no a need for conflict.
A ruling in favor of Somalia would also have far-reaching impact on territories beyond Kenya and Somalia. A line that runs downwards would mean Kenya's other border to the south could cut through the northern island of Pemba, which is now Tanzania territory. But analysts sense an even greater threat.
There is a danger that big powers might come there at the invitation of any of these two countries, Kenya or Somalia. And that can, in a geopolitical sense, can cause a lot of tension, instability.
During this period, Kenya and Somalia have cut and restored diplomatic relations, suspended and resumed international flights, and expelled and re-invited each other's ambassadors. Tuesday's judgment is not the end, but the beginning of another diplomatic episode. Ferdinand Omondi, BBC News, Nairobi.
South Africa is still looking for answers after 9 days of looting and violent protests which took place in July. The unrest was sparked by the jailing of the country's former president, Jacob Zuma. The protests were widely seen as a targeted campaign to undermine current President Cyril Ramaphosa. The violence died down after the deployment of thousands of soldiers. Our correspondent, Nomza Mazego, sent this report.
The riots that shocked South Africa 3 months ago. Nearly 350 people died across 2 provinces which were affected by violent protests sparked by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. The unrest began when a heavily armed gang hijacked trucks and torched more than 20 cars on the N3 motorway, which links sub-Saharan Africa's biggest port to the country's economic hub. Today, we went back to these areas. Only a handful of the shopping malls that were looted or set alight have reopened. Here in Tembisa, a township in eastern Johannesburg, several people are still missing. Their families suspect they perished in a gas explosion at this supermarket. Police have said the remains that were recovered here were burnt beyond recognition and that it could take a while before DNA tests are concluded.
I need to find my son's remains so that I can have peace. I have so many questions. I need to know what happened to my son. All I want is to bury him. I need closure.
While some families are counting the human cost, many others are trying to rebuild their businesses. This is what remains of Ezenhlanhla Nqaphai's business. It's the first time she's returned to her clothing shop since July's unrest. Ezenhlanhla is one of many small business owners whose businesses were not insured and is looking to the country's state-owned insurance company to bail them out.
This was my bread and butter, my sole income, this shop. And now all of a sudden it's gone without any notice or prior arrangement. Nothing whatsoever, nothing planned. It just cut.
Experts say it will be another year before the country's economy recovers from the impact of the worst violence in post-apartheid South Africa.
I think we need to understand what happened in July happened at a time when we're busy trying to navigate a pandemic, something that none of us were ever prepared for in 2020. A lot of jobs were lost, not just through COVID, but through this unrest. We know through the looting, the destruction of business premises, shops, retail sector, the jobs that were lost across a wide section of the economy. We need to move quicker to get those people back into employment so that we start to drive the economy again.
While the rebuilding continues, it remains unclear what the real cause of the violence was, which has led many to believe that it could happen again. Nomsa Masego, BBC News, South Africa.
Fast fashion brands are overproducing to meet the demands of modern trends, and it's creating a huge environmental problem in West Africa. Ghana imports about 15 million used garments weekly, often made up of the Western world's unwanted cast-offs. Our BBC Ghana correspondent Thomas Nadi investigates the problem.
Every morning is the same, a desperate scramble for the best. Kantamanto is Ghana's largest second-hand clothing market, and traders here rely on whatever is sent from places like America and the UK.
On Wednesday, we did not get good clothing at all.
About 30,000 traders engage in the second-hand clothing business in this market, and for most of them it is their main source of livelihood. But more recently they are beginning to incur a lot of losses, and that's because the quality of second-hand clothing imported into this country has reduced. Kwame Osei Ansa imports his clothing from the UK.
No matter what, there's always waste in the bills.
Bales these days are full of fast fashion items so badly made they can't be resold. And the reality is 40% of what arrives goes straight to landfill. This is a major graveyard for fast fashion waste. Years of dumping Western cast-offs and plastics have created this environmental nightmare. And it doesn't end here. Much of the clothing makes its way through storm drains to the ocean.
You can't take it out. You have to dig. It's buried. It's stuck. Wow. Some of these clothes are polyester and I would say synthetic fabrics. That also go into the waterway and chokes the fish and the marine life in there. The fashion industry actually loses $500 billion a year due to fashion waste. And we need to really mobilize to get all these production and manufacturing companies internationally to commit to how this will be disposed of.
As the day ends at Kantamanto Market, trucks pick up the latest haul of discarded items. The sheer volume of waste generated by the fashion industry isn't being managed. It's simply doing its damage in countries like mine. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Accra.
Still to come, Mimi will be here with the sport as we get the latest from the World Cup qualifiers across Africa. Welcome back to Focus on Africa. The Dubai Expo 2020 is ending its first week, and it's been a week dedicated to showcasing new tech to fight the effects of climate change. Water insecurity due to pollution and severe droughts is a major challenge in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa. But a Czech engineer might be on his way to finding a rather ethereal solution. The BBC's Pierre-Antoine Denis met up with him in Dubai.
Turning the desert into an oasis. A crazy project imagined already in several sci-fi books, but which could well become reality. A group of Czech engineers had developed Savor, an autonomous soil enrichment project that does not disrupt our ecosystem and also provide drinkable water.
I do believe it's not too cheeky to say that, but if you don't try to change the world, you will never do that. So we are trying to bring the common solution.
Currently being tested in the landlocked Swehan Desert in the United Arab Emirates, the results are quite impressive. These two containers produce up to 200 liters of water per day, a result that could be similar in the Sahara Desert, where humidity does not exceed 25% in the dry season. Here at the World Expo, the permanent bigger machine is on display. It can produce up to 800 liters of water per day.
So here we are. How does this work? Actually, all starts on top of the roof, where we have these solar collectors. Then the electricity goes here. We store it in the new generation of batteries that gives us a chance to produce water even by night. Then we are running the desiccant, what's the technology producing water from the air based on the quality of the surface that absorbs molecules of water from the air. And when we have enough there, we cool it and we are getting distilled water. And because it's a purely distilled water, we have to modify to make it potable. So we are using quatimine to enrich distilled water with some minerals that makes it potable. And what we can do as well, we can add some algae in here in the photobioreactor to make the water more efficient for the irrigation of the garden, because from every single square meter of solar panels, you can get 1 to 2 liters of water per day, depends on the humidity we spoke about. So this is the only limit, the area of the collector panels.
And so now we can drink that water?
Absolutely, I'll start. If you can just keep it for me.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers. Tastes like normal water.
It is normal water actually. It's only created by the technological miracle. That's it.
No formal interest has come yet from any African countries or investors, but this project, supported by other countries in the world, may well be a turning point as our resources reduce every year. Pierre-Antoine Denis, BBC News, Dubai.
They were female leaders in a male-dominated world and shaped the future of Africa. As part of Black History Month here in the UK, BBC Africa's youth programme What's New has been looking at the legacy of queens on the continent who were loved and respected for their leadership. Our own queen, Jean Otalo, went to meet artist Onyinye Iwu, who has illustrated the achievements for her exhibition Queens of Africa. Let's take a look.
Throughout African history, women have played hugely significant roles in the story of the continent and how it's evolved. Especially during the pre- and post-colonial era, they held positions of power, whether they were queens, presidents, or leaders of movements.
What inspired you to create an illustration series that depicts African women who have ruled, inspired, and made a positive impact in their community?
When you look at African history, I feel like a lot of women were kind of left out or ignored or erased. I certainly didn't grow up knowing much about any queens. And I felt like it was really important for young people to see that there were role models for them since ancient times.
Nzinga Mbandi was queen of the Mbundu kingdoms of Ndongo and Matamba, located in present-day northern Angola.
Queen Nzinga Mbandi is one example of an African ruler who wasn't afraid of European invaders. She spent almost 40 years fighting for her people against the Portuguese.
Queen Nzinga was one of the queens that actually started from young to be trained as a military leader, but not just physical training. She actually learned Portuguese from a very young age, which allowed her to communicate with the colonizers at the time.
There are many versions of the story of the Queen of Sheba, some historical and others mythical. 3,000 years ago, according to legend, a beautiful and wealthy queen embarked on a long journey to visit a celebrated king. He was King Solomon. In the biblical tale, the Queen of Sheba is quoted describing herself.
I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem.
There is much debate, though, about where she was actually from. One country that claims her is Ethiopia.
Queen of Sheba was a very prolific ruler. She exuded confidence. She knew herself. And it's really inspiring for young women as a role model because she had such a great kingdom. She was well known throughout Africa. She was feared. And actually, she didn't feel in any way to be uncomfortable or shy in front of King Solomon.
Hatshepsut might not be as well known as Cleopatra, but she ruled over Egypt long before, only the second woman to do so. During her reign, she was often depicted in portraits with a male body, wearing traditional clothing of a king with a fake beard.
She actually was a really strong ruler. She actually was a really strong military ruler. She knew what she wanted, but unfortunately, because of being a woman, she couldn't show herself as a strong pharaoh that she was.
Jean Otalo, BBC World News.
You are watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports with Mimi. Welcome, Mimi.
Thank you very much, Zuhura. Now, Thursday saw one of the biggest shock results in the Africa World Cup qualifiers. Nigeria lost at home to the Central African Republic with a late goal from the visitors. Today brings more fixtures to look forward to. In Group D, Malawi v Ivory Coast was the early kickoff. That match was played in South Africa with a 3-0 win for Ivory Coast, who topped the group. Angola versus Gabon was due to have kicked off over 2 hours ago. It's just kicked off in the last 10 minutes. There's no official word from CAF why that was delayed. Cameroon are playing at home against Mozambique for the first time in the qualifiers at the moment. They're leading 3-1. The 3 later matches kick off in just over an hour's time. One of the late kickoffs is Algeria versus Niger at home in Blida. The hosts currently on a 29-game unbeaten run. They top Group A with 4 points. They have played twice and won once and drawn the other, whilst the visitors are third in the table and won a game. Both sides are meeting for the first time.
We are facing a strong African team, and the most important thing is to win by a large score. As I said, the Niger team is hard and complicated to deal with, and it's up to us to facilitate our mission to win this first leg game and effectively deal with the second leg game.
The other late kickoff sees Libya face Egypt, which will take place at the Borg El Arab Stadium. Libya currently sit top of Group F following victories over Gabon and Angola in September, while Egypt, who are also unbeaten, defeated Angola but were held to a 1-1 draw by Gabon during last month's matches. A win for Libya would put them 5 points clear of Egypt with 3 games left to play, while Mohamed Salah's Egypt will aim to leapfrog them with victory.
He has a good reputation in football with plenty of talent. The chances of winning will always be in his favor. But at the end of the day, maybe they win or they might lose. That's football. Mohamed Salah is the best player in the world right now, and we, the Libyan team, do not have such a talent available. But we know how to play and how to fight on a football pitch, despite the fact that the Egyptian team is really strong.
To boxing, whilst all eyes will be on Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in the main event in Las Vegas, Saturday's undercard event will also showcase some prospective talents in the heavyweight division. One of those will be Nigeria's Efe Ajagba. He's had 15 wins from 15 fights. He's been sparring and learning with Fury, which he hopes will help him for this fight.
Yeah, I'll be learning some stuff from him. Tyson Fury, like a lot of experience. He has the strategy and how to strategize the opponent. So I learned some stuff from Tyson Fury. How to throw more combinations, more jabs, all that stuff like that. So he told me how to do more feinting as well. So those are the things I learned from Tyson Fury as a world champion.
Let's come back to football and to the prestigious Ballon d'Or awards done by France Football. Chelsea and Senegal goalkeeper Edouard Mendy is the only African that has been nominated in the category for the goalkeeper of the year. And Algeria and Manchester City's Riyad Mahrez and Egypt and Liverpool's Mohamed Salah are the only 2 Africans amongst the 30 shortlisted in the men's category. In the women's, no African star has made the cut. And that's all the sport for now. Zuhura, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Mimi. So feel free to get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm at Venus Nyota. Well, that's all from the program. From me, Zuhura Yunus, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team. Goodbye.